minus 5, minus 4, minus 3, minus 2, X minus 1. Fire.
Lights out, everybody. The creaking door.
Dimension X.
Inner Sanctum Mystery.
X minus 1.
Dark fantasy.
Hello everyone, welcome to Sci-Fi and Horror, brought to you by Dwayne Old Time Radio. Sci-Fi and Horror features some of the best programs from the golden age of radio, including X-1, Orbiter X, Dimension X, Slot X's, Lights Out, Ray Bradbury, Dark Fantasy, and many, many more. Before we start today's sci-fi and horror thriller, if you enjoy what I'm doing, let me ask you to subscribe to my channel. Subscribing is 100% free, and you will receive notifications on new posts. Lastly, if you have a moment, please write a short 1 or 2 sentence review or give a rating on your preferred podcast service. A positive review or rating would help me out a lot. And now, on to the show. And again, thank you for your support. Hope you enjoy.
Adventures in Research. Science has performed some unusual experiments. A Dr. Pavlov made news some years ago by ringing a bell to call dogs to dinner. And soon he noticed the dogs developed a curious reflex.
After being exposed to the ringing bell to indicate mealtime, soon the dogs began to drool simply upon hearing the bell.
And this comes as no news to the father of any youngster who has been exposed to the bell of the ice cream man. So today, let's examine the story that lies behind one of the most delectable products of science.
I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream.
This is Paul Shannon bringing you another transcribed story of science, produced as a public service in cooperation with the Westinghouse Research Laboratories. And today telling you the story of ice cream. A story that should interest you whether you're young enough to recognize the sound of the ice cream man's bell or mature enough to remember the candy butcher who walked through the railroad cars shouting,
"Ice cream! Get your ice cream here! Freeze your teeth and give your tongue a sleigh ride! Freeze your teeth and give your tongue a sleigh ride!"
Now, strange to relate, Dolly Madison didn't invent ice cream. No doubt Mrs. Madison was an amazing woman, but no matter what the legend says, Dolly Madison never made any remark like this.
You know, James, for dinner tonight, I believe I will have something different. I think I will invent ice cream.
No, ice cream was known long before Mrs. Madison brought her delightful presents to the White House. Considerable credit should be given to the Emperor Nero, some 1900 years ago.
I understand, my dear Navarro, that the banquet tonight is to outdo anything that Nero has yet accomplished.
No, indeed. Well, surely it will have to be sumptuous to banish from my memory the last state banquet I attended. Oh, 100 donkeys bearing grapes, roast
pork crowned with a goblet and garnished with cheesecake, and hen's liver done to a turn.
But the dinner tonight will be even greater. I hear the mighty emperor has a surprise in store.
A surprise? But even Nero could not have a more richly laden table than before. Oh, the sweet memory of it. I was ill 3 times.
I am beside myself with curiosity. What rich treat can Nero be planning?
Well, one thing I know. He shall spare no expense to see his guests are rewarded. Until tonight, Principio. Was there ever such a repast? Oh, indeed, Principio, our emperor has truly gone beyond our fondest expectations.
I am disappointed.
Oh?
The boar's head stuffed with apples, it was only passable, was it not, my love?
Wretched, all of it wretched. I should never have come if Nero had not promised a treat.
But I had presumed that Nero...
The mountains are...
I trust the banquet tonight has met with your expectations. But we have indeed saved the best to last. Enter, slaves, bring on the ice.
Ice? Did he say ice?
Oh, indeed. But where did it come from?
Well, it is ice, with some succulent sauce poured over it. Ooh, it is indeed ambrosia. Oh, a gift from the gods. What is that, Marius?
But ice in Rome? How could he have done it?
I have just heard Marius has whispered to me that the emperor brought it from the mountains.
But the mountains are such a distance.
He kept a steady stream of slaves traveling back and forth with snow and ice to prepare the dish.
Hail, Emperor Nero! Hail!
Flavored ices were known back in the days of Nero. And records disclose that ancient nomads of the Hebrew tribes made a similar discovery. They carried their wine in skin pouches, and as they wandered to regions with snow banks, they would stop to cool the liquid. When left in the snow too long, the liquid would freeze. The result was an icy drink that they recorded as having a most pleasant taste. The next record of the ancestors of ice cream dates back to the 14th century, and a renowned Venetian traveler named Marco Polo.
Yes, my friends. In Cathay, the noblemen served milk frozen. They proffered me the goblet. I tasted of it. It was indeed a strange and wonderful taste.
But how do they make such a milk, friend Marco?
Alas, I do not know. The mysterious secret they would not reveal.
Frozen milk. Marco Polo, that is too much. Frozen milk. It is simple. Obviously, they simply freeze the cow.
About the beginning of... spread to France, and then to England, where Charles I honored the French chef who prepared it by giving him an income for life. Ice cream showed up in the United States in the year 1700. By 1750, recipes for it appeared in cookbooks in the colonies, and by 1774, the New York hostesses could say,
"Oh, my dear, use no other caterer. Phineas Gadsden is the only one I would even think of. He makes ice cream."
And in an old account ledger belonging to George Washington, we find this written.
May 17th, 1784. For the purchase of a cream-making machine for ice, did today spend the amount.
Finally, in the early days of the 19th century, many people put their minds to a simple machine for home manufacture of the frozen delicacy. Some sources indicate the modern home ice cream freezer was patented by William G. Young in 1848. Others believe that a Mrs. Nancy Johnson antedated Mr. Young's intriguing machine.
Ma! Oh, Ma!
I'm down in the cellar, Albert.
Miss Green's up here to see you.
What'd you say?
I say Mrs. Green's here.
Land of Goshen, tell her I'm busy.
She's busy, Mrs. Green. She's down in the cellar. I guess she's working on that machine of hers. Only she won't tell us what it is. Well, she won't let any of us down there. Says it's no business of ours till she's finished it.
Mrs. Nancy Johnson did have a surprise in the cellar, a machine. And finally came the day for the great display of it.
But golly, Ma, what's it do?
Now you just keep your hands off, Albert. I'll show you in just a minute. Did you skim the cream off that pail of milk?
Yeah, Ma. Put it right there on the bench.
Well, now, Albert, you'll just see what I'm up to. I just put these paddles into this pail, see?
But what's it good for, Ma?
Now you just watch now. I pour in the cream and the sugar. And now then, I'll put this pail inside the wooden bucket here. Now what did I do with the snow?
Snow?
Albert, don't you be laughing at your ma. Here, pack that snow in around the bucket.
Oh, it's cold.
Yeah, that's right. Now pack it in hard now. There. Now you just start a-cranking that handle on top. And before long, you know what we'll have?
No, what?
Ice cream, Albert. Genuine homemade ice cream. Now you get to work a-cranking there.
Ice cream? Gee, this ain't work at all.
What Mrs. Johnson had done was invent a practical home ice cream freezer, and with it also devised one of the sweetest household chores any youngster ever had, cranking the handle on an ice cream freezer. The basic idea of any home freezer remains the same, a metal can which revolves inside a wooden tub or container. Inside the metal can are paddles or dashers, which mix the ice cream and maintain a smooth, creamy texture.
It's just like bread, in a way. You have to keep turning the handle and mix the air in. Ice cream without whipping would be like bread that didn't rise.
But today's ice cream is a far cry from the homemade product of 150 years ago. Fresh milk with extra cream and sugar are basic requirements. Nowadays, pasteurization and homogenization make a superior product. And automatic whipping and freezing controls are new scientific measures that guarantee smooth texture and even quality. Today's ice cream is manufactured by two different methods. One is the batch freezer, which means just what its name implies.
That's right. Make up a batch at a time. It's a refrigerated container in which a revolving beater whips the ice cream mix to make it smooth. Around the freezer is a closed jacket where a refrigerant keeps circulating, causing the mix to freeze. And the flavoring and berries and nuts have to be added at just the right time.
The other method in use is the continuous freezer.
This is a refrigerated tube with revolving blades surrounded by a refrigerant that keeps a constant temperature, usually 25 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. The ice cream mix is pumped through, taking only a few seconds, pouring out in a semi-solid state at a temperature of about 21 to 22 degrees above 0. Flavoring and sugar are part of the mix before freezing starts. Fruit, nuts, candy, and other such flavoring materials are usually continuously fed into the semi-frozen ice cream and thoroughly mixed into it by a machine that can even add maraschino cherries in the correct proportions without squeezing out their pink juice. This mixing takes place just before the ice cream flows into containers. Then it moves into a refrigerated storage room. We call it a hardening room. There, temperatures range from 15 to 30 degrees below zero. After several hours, the ice cream is hardened throughout.
But whichever way it's made, from manufacturer to dealer, science constantly checks on its food value and purity. And every youngster from 1 to 100 checks on its delicious goodness. Proof of this is that over 2.25 billion quarts of ice cream are consumed every year in the United States. About 14 quarts a year for every man, woman, and child in America.
Yes, it's been a long road from frozen water to a super special chocolate sundae. And Nero, Marco Polo, George Washington, Dolly Madison, Nancy Johnson, and William Young have all had a hand in it over the years, helping bring to perfection one of America's and the world's favorite foods and greatest delicacies.
Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream.
Adventures in Research. In a land where peace is prized, what is more reassuring than the man in uniform, be it the policeman or the soldier? And one of the most important pieces of equipment either one uses was once yesterday's secret weapon. This is Paul Shannon bringing you another transcribed story of science produced as a public service in cooperation with the Westinghouse Research Laboratories. And today telling you of yesterday's secret weapon. As far back as one can dip into the history of nations, they have had a common aim. The ancient Greek ruler Dionysius in the year 430 B.C. expressed it this way.
We must needs invent a weapon for protection, whereby the power of one man can be increased beyond the capacity of his ordinary arm.
And so Dionysius invented a weapon which he called Polybolus, a weapon which projected a succession of arrows supplied by a magazine or hopper. In the years to follow Dionysius, this purpose remained the same, to increase the power of the individual. At the Battle of Hastings, some of the English archers used bows which fired 2 or more arrows simultaneously. And with the invention of gunpowder, an idea was born in the mind of a German monk named Bernard Schwartz.
I cannot banish from my mind, Franz, the writings of the Englishman Bacon.
I have seen you reading what he has written, and you have wrinkled your brow as one who is deep in thought.
I have been, for as I read of this gunpowder that the Englishman writes of, strange visions scurried through my mind.
Visions?
Yes, of iron tubes for men who now carry bows. No longer will they carry those bows, but instead long iron tubes with strange arrows padded to fit into this tube.
Oh, strange thoughts you think, Bernard.
And in this tube is this gunpowder of which Bacon has written. The gunpowder packed in the tube discharges the arrows.
And the arrows are propelled through space?
It is a haunting vision. For Bacon's writings have seriously aroused me. For if I can see such strange devices, what will the mind of man invent that is even more strange, more awesome?
It was not long before such a device was invented. The French had a name for it, orgue, which is to say organ, and it did resemble a pipe organ, with its 6 to 10 barrels mounted side by side on a frame. They were fired by a single lock, firing a quick match, which ignited the charge of all barrels in rapid succession. These weapons the French called not only orgue, but also rebord de can, which means, of all things, little bit of laughter. But from medieval France, our picture changes to America, which in the year 1862 was in the throes of a civil war. And to the War Department, Dr. Richard J. Gatling of Chicago, an inventor by trade, paid an important call.
But, Dr. Gatling, the machine gun is nothing new or novel.
I realize that, sir, but...
And all of them have had one thing in common. Yes, every machine gun that you inventors have tracked to my office all had one thing in common.
But my idea is a radical change.
All the same, Doctor, none of them work.
If you will but listen, General, I'm sure I can explain the theory of my gun to you.
Oh, in theory, it undoubtedly is perfect, but in action...
Let me explain. The gun consists of 6 barrels, fixed in a circular form around a central axis. Behind the 6 barrels is the loading mechanism. The cartridges are fed into the top barrel by a trough at the top of the mechanism. As the gun is fired, the cartridges fall into the top gun of their own weight. Then, as the operator turns the handle, the entire axis revolves. While the gun at the top is being loaded, the gun at the bottom is being fired, and ejects the empty cartridge as it moves up to the top, and so on.
And when the gun explodes from the heat?
No, sir. The entire gun is covered by a water jacket which cools the barrel.
Excuse me, Doctor, but though I'm certain your gun would undoubtedly show a great amount of effort and inventiveness, we're in the middle of a war, and we have no time to spend in searching out new gadgets.
I realize that, sir, but if I can't convince the War Department officially, would there be any objection to my using your soldiers to demonstrate just what this weapon can do?
Well, Dr. Gatling, such demonstrations, all unofficial, of course, might be most agreeable to the War Department.
Of course, unofficial.
Yes.
One of my employees could operate the gun in action, showing the men in the field just how this machine gun operates in action.
Man, oh, man. Won't that give him to him, Bo? I never thought I'd see anything like that. Boy, if we had 2 more of them things, they could send most of us home.
Ain't that so? I never saw any gun like that one. Why, this Gatling feller...
Man, don't you know? That there's no gun. It's a gat.
The newspapers in the North carried no details about the Gatling gun. In fact, it was merely referred to as the unofficial secret weapon. Thus, the Gatling gun's reputation never crossed the Atlantic. Europe was concentrating on problems of its own, the Franco-Prussian War, and newspaper correspondents there began hinting of a dark secret, too.
It is reliably reported that the mighty army of Napoleon III has a secret weapon which will disperse the ranks of the Prussians. Although only a few soldiers have been permitted to see it, it is reported that it is the discovery of a Belgian officer who some 20 years ago invented this new and fearsome device.
Never was a secret kept so dark and so hidden. False rumors were planted to confuse any Prussian eavesdroppers. For indeed, the secret weapon of France was a machine gun, invented quite independently of Dr. Gatling's. On Mobilization Day in July 1870, the French moved their new guns to the front, wrapped in tarpaulins and heavily guarded by armed soldiers. It was quite a secret, although some newspapers had uncovered the story and hastily revealed it to their readers.
The mighty secret weapon of the French army is a gun that fires 12 times per minute. The device weighs 1,800 kilograms and loads 2,100 cartridges. The gun itself is used in artillery fashion to supplement the long siege guns, invented in 1859 by a...
But actually, this did not give the secret away. For the French, in an absent-minded moment, had shown the Prussian staff officers just how it worked during maneuvers some years previous. But that was not the only mistake the French generals had made. Their almost fatal error was in classifying the machine gun as artillery, and the Prussian generals could well remark.
The range of their weapon is limited to that of the Chesapeake rifle, such as French infantry uses. A range of, 1,000 yards, perhaps a little more. So their secret weapon gives us a target that is even more attractive than their field gun, even more. For our guns cannot range it, and their little secret weapon cannot reply. A secret weapon.
But the French newspapers continued their enthusiasm.
The mighty, wonderful weapon is a tremendous advance in France's military history. The great secret weapon of the Emperor's army will bring a speedy victory over the Prussian force.
But as the Prussian armies made further and further inroads, the fate of the machine gun, the wonder weapon, seemed well marked, even to the French.
The weapon is more of a liability than an asset. It is stupid to believe that an infantry rifle, even if mounted on wheels in series, can perform the task of artillery.
The High Command of the Prussian army has proved that the machine gun as an armed weapon is a failure, bringing complete discredit on those responsible for its use. The machine gun is not an effective instrument of war.
And so Prussia and France, two of the greater powers, believed that the machine gun was a complete failure. Nevertheless, Queen Victoria's England became curious about the wonder weapon with the tremendous firepower.
After extensive tests before the House of Commons, the War Office believes that this is a superior weapon. Although many years have elapsed since the American Gatling invented the machine gun, no one has yet improved upon it, nor have we seen a single performance of any machine that matches it.
In 1882, however, came a new name and a new chapter in the history of the machine gun. The name, Hiram Maxim.
In 1881, I visited an electrical exhibition in Paris and was made a Chevalier of the Legion of Honor on account of some electrical and chemical work that I had done. Well, a while later, I came upon an American I had known in the States.
Well, Maxim, Hiram, good to see you again.
Well, hello. I haven't seen you in years.
Yeah, been a long time. But I've been keeping up with you in the papers.
Oh?
Yeah, I saw you mentioned about a year ago. I said to my wife, hey, old Hiram's been decorated by the French and kissed on the cheek for his work in electricity and chemistry.
Yes, but, you can't live on
Yes, I know. Lots of honor, but no money, huh? Well, you listen to me. If you want to make a pile of money, invent something you can pick up in your hands and say, I invented this. Something you can put a patent on. Well, something like a stove or a chair or, well, at these times, like a gun.
Well, that made me think of the time when I was only about 14 years old. I was making drawings for my father of a hand-worked machine gun. I also thought of the powerful kick I got the first time I fired a United States military rifle. So, on my way from Paris, I made a drawing of an automatic rifle. Within a few weeks, I had set up residence in London and started an experimental shop at 570 Hampton Garden.
Although Maxim's first thoughts were of a repeating rifle to be fired from the shoulder, he soon evolved the machine gun to fire from a tripod, and he worked with tremendous energy and speed.
Patent 3493, registered July 16, 1883, being an invention of improvements on machine or battery guns and in cartridges for the same and other firearms. Patent 6063, January 3, 1884. Patent 7844, February 23rd. Patent 9407, May 23rd.
What made Maxim's machine gun so revolutionary was its many automatic features. Maxim produced a self-loading and self-ejecting single-barrel gun. The principle was simple. The gun barrel, after firing, recoiled in its mountings. This pulled a string, which snapped the barrel back into firing position again. The movement backwards and forwards operated the mechanism, which, having fired the bullet, ejected the empty cartridge and loaded another in its place in the chamber. The cartridges were held in clips in a belt, which the action of the gun moved through the feed block from right to left. The result, a Maxim machine gun, the basis for all such rapid-fire weapons now in use. And while it is best known as a weapon of death and destruction, still it is an essential instrument in the hands of those who would maintain law and order and peace in a troubled world. Part of the good and evil that came from Richard Gatling's and Hiram Maxim's Adventure in Research. And that's today's Adventures in Research, produced in cooperation with the Westinghouse Research Laboratories. These programs are broadcast to Armed Forces personnel overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Join us again next week for another transcribed story of science on Adventures in Research.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy what I'm doing, I ask you to please subscribe to my channel or channels. Well, hope you enjoyed, and until next time, stay safe, wish you well, peace.